So the question reads, hi Danny, do you know why white people dislike black people so much? So as usual, this will be for educational purposes only. Let's talk about it. First and foremost, I do not believe that the overwhelming majority of white people in America dislike black people. I honestly believe that the biggest issue that we have in this country is defining what racism is. On one side of the coin, there is the collective thought that anyone has the ability to be racist. And they use the very literal definition that prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group. Then it says typically one that is a minority or marginalized. On the other side of the coin, there's a popular belief that people of color can't be racist because they don't have enough power. That racism, the thinking goes, transcends prejudice. It's a system of advantage based on race, and people of color don't have the institutional power to oppress others. So basically, this type of racism is structural, it's institutional, it's in the systems. It is power plus prejudice equals racism. And Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, in his phenomenal book on how to be anti-racist, he says the notion that black people can't be racist is tainted by racism itself. And he is quoted as saying, like every other racist idea, the powerless defense underestimates black people and overestimates white people. My thoughts are that if we are going to improve race relations, we need to have more honest conversations. I believe that us as a society, we spend much of our time infighting, arguing with each other over what it means to be racist, that we lose sight of what's really important. And if we listened with the intent to understand rather than to deflect or argue, we could gain a lot of ground. Now, one of my biggest struggles with understanding my own racism was knowing the difference between interpersonal racism and institutional racism. I thought because I wasn't running around calling black people the N-word, I had black friends, I had friends who had biracial kids, that it was impossible for me to be racist because I got along with black people. But what I've learned is that there are different types of racism. There's internalized racism, there's interpersonal racism that we just spoke on, institutional racism and structural racism. It's insidious, it's covert, it comes in the form of microaggressions. It comes in the form of being implicit and explicit, covert and overt. So I don't believe that it's white people disliking black people. I just believe that there's a lot of uneducated and misguided white people who have not done the work to become educated on the topic. And I don't want to seem like I'm justifying or excusing racism because we have a whole wealth of information at our fingertips. There is no excuse for it today. So my message to people would be to stop taking it so personal. When we talk about racism, it's not to attack your character, but it is to attack your education, your thoughts, and your ideas. Understand that we still uphold a constitution that was written by slave owners. We had the abolishment of slavery except when punishment for a crime. We still have legalized slavery written into our constitution by way of the 13th Amendment. And think about it. In 2022, we still had states that had slavery on the ballot. Alabama, Oregon, Tennessee, and Vermont all voted to end the exception, end the exemptions for slavery as punishment for a crime. And states like Louisiana rejected it. And you know why? Because it would cause them to lose a whole bunch of money. When we as a nation are profiting off the labor of our citizens, we are incentivizing crime. Crime technically pays, and it makes sense to create a prison industrial complex in which we have 2 million prisoners in the United States. And as a country, black incarceration rates are dropping, but we still have a lot of work to do. 1,807 black men per 100,000 were held in state or federal prisons during 2021. It was 324 white men. And at the height of mass incarceration, it was estimated that 1 in 3 black males, while 1 in 17 white males, and it was 1 in 6 Hispanic males, would be incarcerated during their lifetime or become convicted felons. And in my opinion, our criminal justice system is the epicenter of systemic or institutional racism in America. But it's all throughout our systems. It's in our housing, it's in our banking, it's in our education, it's in our voting, the way we do democracy, healthcare, the list goes on. And if we as white people aren't working together, standing in solidarity collectively to dismantle this, we are by default being racist. And of course, you're going to have the group of people that scream it's personal accountability, it's the family dynamics, it's the culture. And me personally, I don't believe personal accountability and advocating for a better system are mutually exclusive ideas. Both can be true at the same time. And there's this common misconception that white people today have to pay for the sins of our ancestors and that white people owe black people, and that's just not the case. The United States government committed these egregious acts against black Americans. It is our responsibility to hold the government accountable if we believe in justice like we say we do. And Bryan Stevenson said it best, in the United States, wealth, not culpability, shapes justice. And this is why classism and racism are so closely related. What group of people has been robbed of the most generational wealth? So I may be a little naive, but as always, I want to believe in the goodness of humanity. There aren't a lot of white people who just flat out dislike black people, and the ones who are explicitly racist are not the ones that we have to worry about. It is the well-intentioned, God-fearing, family-loving, hard-working, tax-paying, community-serving, everyday white person that we have to worry about because they walk through this life unaffected and it's business as usual.
I don't mean to say this like to be disrespectful, and maybe this is, some people are going to think this sounds dumb, but I feel like there's a deeper reason why, people of color and specifically the black community have been relentlessly persecuted. Like, I mean, just the things that happened during slavery alone, like, were insane. But I don't know, the more I learn about black history and the ways that, people who literally worked in the government, like the CIA, all these different people in power were trying to ruin the black community. And it makes me think, dude, I feel like, is there something more going on here than just racism? Because it's like, come on, you're telling me you're doing all of this stuff just because you don't like someone's skin color? I feel like, I have this theory that, like, what if black people have some type of superpower? Like, what if they have, I don't know, if they're just born with something very valuable that we don't really know about, but maybe, like I said, these rich people and these people in power, maybe they figured it out a long time ago, and maybe that's why they were like, oh, we have to, like, get rid of them, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I feel like maybe they have something special that we are not taught about that is linked to them being people of color, And I've seen some black creators come on here and try to explain how special it is to have melanin in your skin and how it has all these different properties. But I don't know. I just feel like I have this theory that this goes so much deeper than maybe a lot of us realize, because I'm sorry, but I don't think you're going to go out of your way for all these hundreds and hundreds of years to try to ruin one group of people over something as silly as, oh, their skin is a different color. Like, I feel like there's something that we don't know. I'm telling you, there's something special about them that they don't want us to know. Okay, this is just something that I've been thinking about recently, and I'm like, maybe if there are some black creators that maybe they already
pose the question, why do white people hate black people so much? I have been in situations where I've been surrounded by nothing but white people, and this conversation has come up. The race conversation has come up. And no one ever has an actual reason as to why they hate black people. There's always these, oh, black on black crime. Oh, they're lazy. Oh, they're this. But it's not actually, there's no legitimacy behind their reasoning. It's just shit that they've heard and they're regurgitating. And so, long story short, it really comes down to there is no reason. It's a deep-seated jealousy, a deep-seated hate that, black people exude greatness. Black people are the great inventors. Black people are the beginning of the human race, the Eve gene. And white people have worked so hard to erase the history and erase the greatness of the black race. down to even when things are invented, the majority of things that are invented were invented by a black person. But yet the white race has actually erased the original inventor from history and have put their names on things that they had no business putting their names on.
Hi, Black 1000. I answered this a little bit earlier today, but I was going to try to elaborate a little bit. From my experience, because I can't speak for everyone, all white people or their experiences, but from my experience, it was more like taught to fear you than hate you. I was taught that you were dangerous, that you hated white people. I can remember being told that like I couldn't go in certain parts of town because like if I was just walking down the street, I would have been like murdered or raped or something. It was just more like the rhetoric in the background. Part of my white privilege is I can put down my anti-racist torch and like not think about this because it's not negatively affecting me. In that, we also have white privilege in our racism because we don't have to carry it around all the time. It's not like front of mind. It's not like I was constantly being berated with like bad rhetoric about black people. It's always just like in the background, like being reinforced with, you know, racist jokes or racist comments about people or, you know, using racial slurs to degrade people. So it still happens today. I'm like, there's a park by my house and they have public events for like Easter. They'll have an Easter egg hunt, but we go to them and it's predominantly black people that attend. And I will have white people in my life when they'll be like, oh, what are you doing Saturday? I'm like, oh, we're going up to the park by our house. And they're like, you know, it gets really dark around there, which is now like code for there's too many black people. Or they'll be like, oh, it's really going to be really dark there. So why don't you go over to this part of town, to that park? And I'm just like, yeah, we've been many times. We enjoy it. That's why we're going. But it's just that constant like thread through like theme throughout. And I feel like some of that doesn't answer the question as to like why people feel that way. But again, it's just been ingrained in us since children to fear you, which easily turns to hate, right? If you are scared of them and think that they're going to like threaten your way of life or threaten your well-being, then you are going to hate them. And it's wild. And I'm trying to break down these barriers. I really just want people to see, like, push back on those thoughts, peel back the onion a little bit. Like, why do you have these thoughts? Where did they come from? Are they rooted in fact? Are they rooted in your experiences? And I've said this before, but when you isolate yourself away from a group that you have hatred for, whether it's black people or the LGBTQIA community or the trans community or Muslims or whoever, when you don't have actual experiences with these people on a regular basis, it is easy to continue to believe the bullshit that you've been told because you don't have anything to judge it against except for believing people you love and trust in your life that have told you these things. So more than anything, I encourage white people to engage with these communities, make friends, have experiences, build your own narrative, so at least it's built on something real and just not something that you've been told that's been passed down through generations that have been built on.
Why do white people resent black excellence? Let's talk about it. Not all white people are racist, obviously, but there is a specific subset for whom black excellence seems like a personal affront to them, right? It really bothers them when black people succeed. The 13th Amendment emancipated enslaved black Americans in 1865, and then the Jim Crow laws kind of wrapped up with the passing of the Civil Rights Act in 1964. So if we do the math, that's about 61 years in which black Americans were able to strive for success in any sort of meaningful way without like the constraints of the law pulling them down. 61 years. If we compare that to white Americans who besieged a land already owned and occupied by indigenous Americans, we'll put that around 1620 when, the Mayflower came here, then that gives them about 425 years to establish success in this country. 425 versus 61. If we compare those two fundamentally very different time spans, like, how much did white Americans actually do in all of that time? If we are to compare even the poorest and most underprivileged of white America to black America generally, it is clear that white Americans are born way past the start line, right? By that I mean, by like nature of being white in American society, you do benefit from all sorts of privileges. And like, to be frank, you're not exhausted by the horrible experience of facing racism on a daily basis, right? You do have a ton of privileges. So I imagine existing in this bubble of privilege that you like totally deny, the existence of black people for whom success is like second nature when it comes so easily and so readily, even though you've only had 61 years to achieve it, I imagine that's exhausting and frustrating. I imagine it makes people feel super, super inferior and hurts certain people's tiny, tiny little egos. And what do they blame that deep, deep psychic pain on? Well, of course, DEI and critical race theory and affirmative action. So I guess the question is, what might help those white Americans who just so strongly detest black excellence? Like, what will help you? And for that, I would suggest like a lot of therapy, like a ton of therapy. And I would also just suggest that we open the schools, right? We teach people history. Yeah, maybe? Okay, bye.
Well, I guess to put it simply, we don't. There's a lot of stereotypes out there. And there are some white people that do have hate. And it's usually because of a stereotype that they think all people are the same and they dislike that. But the theory that all white people are that way is also a stereotype. So we got to be careful about stereotypes, and we got to be careful about what we listen to and what we believe, because a lot of it's not true. Take care.